Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 360.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Enjoying my cup of tea then.
Oh, I do love a good cuppa.
A nice brew, eh? Welcome everyone to episode 360, another week of the Big Blue Box podcast. We hope you are keeping well and safe, and that you've managed to do something Doctor Who related. Beat you.
Always tries to catch me out there, he does.
I beat you. I face you. Yeah. Next week you can phase me. You try and phase. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, welcome back to another week, and I'm not looking forward to the news, I'll be honest with you. We've got to get through a couple of news stories, which is going to be hard, but so it's a sad week. It's definitely a sad week for Doctor Who, but you know what we're like here, dear listener, on the Big Blue Box podcast. We don't dwell on that sad stuff for long. We prefer to think of the good times and all the memories and the smiles and laughter and all that stuff. So it will be sad, but at the same time, a bit of a celebration as well. After losing a couple of people this week. And then we are on to our review of the 11th Doctor story, the Snowmen, just to cool you all down just a wee bit. And also a bit of a hidden agenda there, because we're running out of stories. So we need to get it done. Yeah.
It means new stories. We've got plenty of classic Who, but you mean new Who, which I know a lot of people hate that phrase, but that's what you mean, isn't it? We're right. I can't believe this. We've nearly reviewed everything from the Eccleston series onwards, haven't we?
We have, yes. And a bit of context around the 11th Doctor stories. This is the penultimate one for us. So we've got this one to do, and then we've got the other Christmas special, A Christmas Carol.
Oh, we haven't done that.
Nope.
All right.
And then that'll be the very last Matt Smith one. That's all done.
Wow.
And then in a few weeks' time, we've got our last David Tennant story to do as well, which is the finale to Series 4, The Stolen Earth Journey's End.
That's the Davros one, is it?
Yes. And then after we've done that, that is literally all of Modern Who done and reviewed by the Big Blue Box.
My word.
Yeah.
So then we'd just be purely classic Who from there onwards.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, it's only taken us since 2014 to get through all that, but yeah, that'll be all done. And then we're going to wrap everything up for Modern Who. That makes me sad in a way. Makes me sad.
Yeah, it's weird to think that, because you always in your head think, there's so much out there. It's weird to think we've done it all. You were saying to me the other week as well that we might throw in a few curveballs as well. Now that once we've got the newer series out of the way, we might throw in the odd curveball like Canine and Company or something like that, just to break it up a bit. Although, I still feel like that's part of the classic Who series. But yeah, maybe the cushion moves. I don't know. We may throw a few specials in there just to break things up a bit. But yeah. Sure, it'll be strange, won't it, when we've finished all the new stuff? And I kind of miss it, actually, because it's been great revisiting some of the, well, you say new Who, but then you think, actually, the Eccleston and Tennant stuff is already, so many years old. So, at what point does it become classic Who? I mean, I consider it all part of the same series, obviously, but you know what I mean, to try and define it, like... but it's been really cool going back and watching some of that stuff and gaining an appreciation of, certain eras or certain Doctors, or, like with Tennant. I know you love Tennant. I like Tennant, but he's not my favourite. But I've really sort of appreciated him as we've watched certain episodes of his and thought, blimmin' heck, actually, when he turned it on, he was actually really, really good. And stuff like that. So yes, it will be strange not to see those more recent Doctors, but we can watch them on our own time. We don't have to watch them just to review them. We can... we can put them on in our own spare time. Exactly, yeah. We're not beholden to a schedule for our podcast, which is a weird way of doing things, because it feels like, with the exception of newer, like very new Doctor Who, like Jodie's era, that's come out.
haven't really. Well, that's not true. I mean, there's been a few times where I've reached for a Tennant story or a Matt Smith story when we've not had to review something, but for the most part, we've watched everything for the sake of the review, right? So,
yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, we haven't done a commentary one for a while. We did a couple of audio commentaries over reps. We haven't done that for a while, so we could maybe do a bit of that. Or we could just review them all again from the beginning and just start again.
Yes.
Get caught in a time loop.
Yes, let's start with Rose, eh? Mm-hmm. Episode number 1. Mm-hmm. There's an idea. And do it in broadcast order as well. So just go through each series, each Doctor.
That, yeah. That'd be mad.
That would be mad, yeah. But yes, anyway, as we wistfully review the more modern stories away into completion, we are going to get onto the Snowmen later. But before that, it's been a quiet week for me, dude. I've not done anything Doctor Who-y. Not had time, a bit busy with other stuff. Have you done anything Doctor Who-y?
No, I haven't actually. In fact, I did just remember as the music was playing in there. I suppose you could call this Doctor Who-y, but I went to Forbidden Planet on Sunday for the first time in like forever.
London.
Because, there was a time I was in there pretty much every week.
The London one.
The London one,
cool.
yeah. My uncle's visiting from the States, and he wanted to go to a Rolling Stones shop that's popped up in Carnaby Street. And he's like, come with me, let's go out to London for the day. I'm like, yeah, cool. So we went up to London and, Carnaby Street, it's only a good 20-minute walk to FP. So I dragged him there, but he loved it, actually. We had a really good, apart from the fact it was so hot in there that he couldn't stay in there for more than 5 minutes. It was baking in there. But yeah, it's good. It's the first time I've been to FP in a while. I didn't buy anything Doctor Who. It won't surprise you to hear because there really wasn't very much Who stuff in there. I'm hoping Russell will sort this out when when the new series starts. Let's get the merch back because it was a bit pitiful, to be honest. Obviously, no Cabinet of Woe. That's long gone. That's just a distant memory.
The Cabinet of Woe.
The Cabinet of Woe is no more. But there was but it was weird because they had a couple of. So it was like a sort of scattered arrangement of TARDIS badges, a couple of T-shirts, and a few mugs, and that's pretty much it. But just to the left of the mugs, just randomly, there was this old, it's about 4 or 5 of them, Rose figure with K9. I mean, that's donkeys years old. Where the hell have they dug them up from? I don't know if you remember it. It's like a sort of thin pack with a Rose figure and K9. And
does it have the old logo on it? The old
it's like the
orangey one. Yeah.
No, it's before that. It's like the blue and pinky colour one. But it's the sort of old, looks like the sort of Doctor Who movie logo, I think. Yeah, I don't know where they've dug them up from. So they're obviously like really scraping the barrel of stuff to put out, waiting for some new merch to come in. But people keep messaging me about the new B&M sets that are coming as well. And I'm just like, I've actually reached the limit with that blimmin' shop. I don't care how good they are. I don't think I can face trying to find the new sets. And they do sound like they're going to be good, but I'm just going to I think I'm going to be away that month anyway. So I'm just not going to bother. I mean, I probably will because what I'm like, but God, the thought of having to go in there and track those down when they come out. They're apparently due any time now, end of July, August. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be getting another wave of sets. But I popped into B&M the other day. It's such a hellhole. It is, well, not all of them. My local, I can only talk about the one I go to. My local is just, screaming kids, people, just it just looks like it's been ransacked. Mm-hmm. There's stuff everywhere. I can't bear the thought of having to keep going in there to try and find the new Doctor Who sets. And it was depressing me, really, because as much as the shelf in FP was desolate, I would much rather see all the stuff go to FP. Because I was walking around B&M thinking, why does this awful shop get these lovely sets? I cannot get my head around it at all. Anyway, so we got all that misery to look forward to. But apart from a quick visit to FP, I haven't really had a chance to do anything, really. Nothing Doctor Who related for me this week.
Yeah, same, dude. Yeah, quiet one.
A quiet one.
I've not been to FP in ages as well, London one. I think the last one I went to wasn't even in London. I think we were in, can't remember, Coventry? Is there one in Coventry? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the last one I went into. Not that big, that one, but it's not too bad. I bought a load of comics, I think, from there. But yeah, the London one's a strange old place, isn't it? Because it's obviously it's like the flagship store, isn't it, for FP? It's their big old, 2-story. They normally hold the most amount of stock and everything. But it's a strange experience going in there because sometimes you'll go in there and you'll come out with nothing. And it feels like you've looked at nothing and there's just nothing going on. Other times you'll go in there and it's like, where's all the money? I need all the monies because I need to buy loads of things. So, yeah, it's a strange old place, that one. But yeah, we haven't done a big blue box London trip, have we? For ages, we need to do that.
No. Well, it's the first time I've been up to London shopping for a while. I've done a few sort of BFIs and a few meetups for drinks, but I haven't actually been out shopping in London for a while, actually. But yeah, there was still some other good stuff though, mate. There was lots of Star Wars and other good stuff. They got a lot of Marvel things, like the figures in their cabinet, like the big, not the cabinet of woe, the big cabinets as you walk in on the left, all the glass cabinets. They had some awesome figures in there, and some of them look really realistic. Like they've got one of Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. It was like a mini Karen Gillan. It was wicked. I said, the likeness, how do they do it? So they had some other good stuff in there, just not much Who, sadly.
Just not much, mate, in the old Who department. Oh, that's nothing usual. Used to that for a few years now, dude. But anyway, glad you had a cool time there.
Yes,
because it was a certain person's birthday recently.
I didn't want to mention it.
Well, come on.
I mean, it's so yesterday, but yeah.
Little old you, eh? Still rocking. He's still looking great. Who fans? If you've not seen him on his YouTube vids recently or anything, he still looks at least 10 years younger.
Well, I tell 10 people I'm 10 years younger. Yeah, as long as I can get away with it, I'll keep telling it.
Just keep going, mate. Yeah, just knock a year off every year. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, as the older you get, the presents and cards definitely decrease. I think I got about. Actually, no, I was going to say I got about 3. I probably got about 10 cards. Because people just do it on Facebook now, don't they? Happy birthday. There's no need for cards. But I got a couple of cards, and I got a couple of presents like chocolates and stuff, but my parents have bought me a cool Doctor Who book, and I think this will be the only Doctor Who present I get. Well, it will be because my birthday's gone now, but they bought me I think it's called the Doctor Who Adventures. It's a big book by David Howe, and it's all about the Doctor Who Virgin adventures. And I've wanted that book for ages.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the one I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's got all the covers in it. And I haven't got it yet because my parents are on holiday and they're like, "Oh, we'll give it to you. It's arrived. We know, we can see it's arrived, and we'll give it to you when we get back." And I'm like, "Yes, I really want it because that's something I've been wanting for quite a while. That book."
Looks rather good.
Yes, but that'll be the only Doctor Who related present that I got this year. So.
Yes, well, it's not like Christmas, is it? Because with Christmas, you normally get. Somebody inevitably gets you the annual that's on sale in WH Smith here in the UK for, I don't know, £1 or something like that. Some Doctor Who socks and probably...
The block calendar. I always ask for the block calendar. I'm like, get me that block calendar.
Yeah, my sister normally gets me the block calendar.
I love it. It's sort of,
Nice. Anyway, after we've waffled on for too long there, we've had a very light week with Doctor Who. So shall we land... and do these bits of news, bud?
I don't really want to, but yes, we should. Go on.
Rightio. First bit of news. We have lost, unfortunately, David Warner. David Warner has passed away, sadly, at the age of 80. And... such a huge, both of the guys that we're going to talk about, such long careers, huge. Like this, David Warner's been in the game was in the game, should I say, sadly, for just over 60 years as a TV and film actor, and has been in some amazing things. Like normally when we have to talk about people that have left us, we normally have a look through their back filmography and see what they've been in and so on. And just so many things that you forget about that they acted in before we were alive, dude. So David Warner, of course, connected to Doctor Who very much with Big Finish, but also appeared in Cold War. He was very, very good in that as the caretaker, cleaner dude. He was really good in that. Had a really good relationship with Clara. in that episode. He played that beautifully. And
Cold Ice.
Yes.
Cold War.
Cold
sorry,
War.
was it?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. And and then you look back through and see what he's done. So much theatre work in Shakespeare, but then also appearing in the old Star Trek films, and I completely forgot that he was in those because I haven't seen them because I'm not really.
As you said that, I thought Star Trek. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not a Trekkie, so I don't really watch them that often. I normally watch one every 5 years. It feels like a long time, so it's been ages. And then as soon as I read that, I was like, yes, of course, he was in those old Star Trek films. And then, as I said, loads of Shakespeare stuff, loads of theatre, very much respected within that scene as well. And then. Some old things like The Omen, starred alongside Gregory Peck in the old 70s film The Omen, the original one. And just so many cool things. So his family put a statement out and said over the past 18 months he approached his diagnosis with characteristic grace and dignity. So he will be missed hugely by us, his family and friends, and remembered as a kind-hearted, generous and compassionate man, partner and father whose legacy of extraordinary work has touched the lives of so many over the years. And so he is survived by his partner Lisa Bauman, his son Luke and daughter-in-law Sarah. So sad news, this one, dude. Mr. Warner leaves us at the age of 80.
Yeah, it is sad, mate. I always think in Tron as well. He was in Tron.
Of course.
I always forget he's in Tron, but of course he was a big part of that. And he did loads of Big Finish, mate. He does some absolutely fantastic audios for Big Finish. And it's like you said, heck of a legacy that he leaves behind. So very sad news. Which does bring us on to another big loss, which has just happened this morning, actually, as we're sort of recording this. It's just been announced that Bernard Cribbins has passed away at the age of 93. And obviously, if we were to list the amount of TV and film work that Bernard has done over those 93 years, we would be here for 4 or 5 hours. It'd be like one of our old podcasts that used to go on forever. So, as you can imagine, Bernard leaves behind him a fantastic legacy of work. I think most people listening to this podcast will be remembering him as Wilf or possibly Tom Campbell from the Cushing movies because they've had a resurgence recently. But yeah, he did a phenomenal amount of film and TV work over the years. Russell D. Davies has given a statement and he said he loved being in Doctor Who. He said, children are calling me Grandad in the street. His first day was on location with Kylie Minogue. How cool is that? But all eyes, even Kylie's, are on Bernard. He turned up with a suitcase full of props just in case, including a rubber chicken. I can so see him doing that. What an actor. What a wonderful actor. He once took him to TV Choice Awards and sent him up on his own to collect the award. The entire room stood up and cheered him. That's a lovely memory, Russell says. He phoned up and said, I've got an idea. What if I attack a Dalek with a paintball gun? Okay, Bernard, it went in. I don't remember that. When did he do that?
It's in the first film, right?
Was it? Yeah, I can't remember. But anyway, yes, that's in there. It says he loved Gil, that was his wife, always heart. Mentioned during every conversation we ever had. A love story for the ages. So lucky to have known him. Thanks for everything, my old soldier. A legend has left the world. And I think that last line says it all. Because Bernard, but we use the word legend quite a lot these days, but I think you could definitely say that Bernard was worthy of that. He was a proper legend. Like I said, so much stuff that he's done over the years. So very, very sad and a great character. I think we can both agree. And I think we've said many times that Wilf and Donna, but Wilf was such a great character. And I think I'm right in saying this, the actual character became more prominent because I think the actor who played Donna's dad died. And so they sort of brought Wilf to the forefront, I think. So,
That's right.
It's so great that he got a chance to be on screen more because he was magic. Such a, brought that character to life. So him and Donna, Wilf and Donna, absolutely fantastic pairing in Doctor Who. So very, very sad news. Very sad news.
It is, mate. Yeah, extremely sad. And you almost felt like he was invincible, Bernard Cribbins. Do you know what I mean by that? Because he's one of those actors that, again, like David Warner, has been acting for so long, decades and decades. And he got to that point where, when he first came into Doctor Who as Wilf, he looked quite old then, didn't he? I mean, obviously that was the point, as playing somebody's granddad. he had to be of a certain age and he was in his later years then. But then that was years ago in itself. And he just kept going and going and going. And you just felt, he's doing conventions all the time, popping up in Who. He was in Big Finish, wasn't he, for quite a few... Was he?
Yes, he's done a bit Big Finish,
I was going to say he's done some Big Finish, yeah. And you just thought he's just going to go on. I know it's ridiculous to say and to think like that, but you just thought that he was just going to go on forever as Bernard Cribbins and as Wilf. And it's just... I think that's the heartbreaking thing about both of these actors, is that they... Up until they died, they were still working and still rocking and rolling, so... Yeah.
Well, in fact, he was filming recently with Tennant, wasn't he?
He was.
Yes. He was spotted filming. In fact, I think the BBC announced it, because I remember at the time when we recorded the podcast being quite careful about what I said in case it was a spoiler, and I don't want to ruin anything. But I think the BBC did officially announce that Wilf was back, and so he's filmed scenes for the new upcoming special with Tennant. We're assuming they will still include them, or he'll still be part of it. I can't imagine they'll. I'm sure they'll keep those scenes in, and they'll probably do a tribute to him. So, like you said, filming and being a part of Doctor Who right up until the very end, which is going to make those scenes even more heart-wrenching, I feel, to watch. But I'm glad he's going to be in that special. That's going to be, so they've still got some more of Bernard to come.
Yes, so, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right, dude. An absolute legend and a complete national treasure for us here in the UK. And sad times to lose Bernard. So he was 93 when he passed, and David was 80. So nothing to be sad about in the long term. I know it's sad with the announcement and everything, but let's have a big old smile on our face and a big old because just a huge body of work to enjoy, not just Doctor Who, but over the decades, loads of very, very cool stuff. So yeah. David Warner and Bernard Cribbins then sadly leaving us, but we will see some more of Bernard in the 60th, right? As you said, so all good.
Yeah, one of the specials, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay, dude, with the news out of the way, I think it's time to get on to the review. What have we got this week?
Yeah, so we're drifting back to the Matt Smith era for a Christmas special, and this one's called The Snowmen.
There's a man called the Doctor. He lives on a cloud in the sky, and all he does all day, every day, is to stop all the children in the world ever having bad dreams.
Am I going to have the nightmare tonight?
When you find something brand new in the world, something you've never seen before, what's the next thing you look for?
Doctor!
A grenade!
The Doctor doesn't help people.
What's your name?
Clara.
What is this?
I said I'd feed you. I didn't say who to.
Listen to me, the snow's feeding off your thoughts. It will build an army of ice, and it will be the last day of humanity on this planet.
The Snowmen. This was first broadcast back on Christmas Day in 2012. Remember that, when we had a Doctor Who special on Christmas Day?
Yeah, good times.
Yeah. 2012 then, it ran for an hour, exactly an hour. Was written by the Moffbag, directed by Saul Metzstein, I think I'm saying that right, and stars Matt Smith and Jenna Louise Coleman, as she was known back then, with a few supporting guest stars on this one. And the synopsis is thus: after losing Amy Pond and Rory Williams, the 11th Doctor has retired to Victorian England, where Strax, Jenny Flint and Vastra assist him. The Doctor eventually meets Clara Oswald and takes a liking to the young barmaid who leads a double life as a governess. At the same time, a sinister plot is unfolding. Snowmen are randomly appearing around London, growing in size and power. All they need to take over the world is some human DNA in ice crystal form. And the frozen body of a drowned governess can give them just that. That's a good synopsis, that one. Remember when
it is.
We reviewed, I think it was the last Torchwood story. And the synopsis was just like, Torchwood are doing this thing. And we were like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack walks in a room and discovers a thing. Oh, right. Okay. Sounds really exciting.
So at least a decent synopsis with that one. So yeah, okay. Christmas special, dude, in the middle of summer. Let's do it. What do you reckon to this one?
Yeah. I quite like the Snowmen. I've always thought this is a fairly nice Christmas special. I do love this idea of like the Doctor retreating and just parking the TARDIS up on a cloud, and there's a magical feel to it. I mean, Moffat scripts often get criticised, talked of as being fairy tale like. I don't see it as a negative personally. I put this on and Murray's music drifts in and the production looks good, and I think Moffat's got some lovely, in brackets, fairy tale ideas, and for me it works. I think it's a nice episode, and I think there's lots of funny moments in it that I still found funny. I think the thing is with Moffat's humour, for me, for the most part, it lands. Not always, but I normally find Moffat's scripts quite sharp and funny, like the stuff with Strax and the Doctor just bounce off each other really well. So I think it's a good story. I will say, well, no, I think I enjoy this story. Is it a good story? Well, watching it again last night, I still enjoyed it, but I have to say, as sort of watching it with a critique, it isn't quite as good as I remembered in terms of the actual story. It's a little, the storyline's a little bit thin. It does work, and I still found it a really nice, beautiful watch. Actually, it's a beautiful looking episode, and I particularly like this version of Clara, surprisingly as well. I think she works really well as the Victorian Clara. So there's lots of things I like about it. I do enjoy it. I think it's one of the better Matt Smith Christmas specials, because I don't think, I mean, he had a couple of real clangers that weren't good at all, but I think this is one of the better ones. The storyline not quite as strong as I remembered it, but I still found it a very enjoyable watch when I watched it last night. So yeah, it's a good one. It's a decent episode, and yeah, I think there's a lot of nice and fun things to be found in it. What do you reckon?
Okay, yeah. I don't mind this one. I don't mind it.
Not a massive fan? Just
not a massive fan, yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind it. I think, like so many Matt Smith stories, I like him in it.
Yeah.
I think he's very good, as usual. Yeah, there's just something about it. In my notes here, I've just got, it tries really, really hard to be a great Doctor Who story, but just falls short a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's something about... what's the best way to describe it? There's something about the storyline, the plot, which seems to gather steam and picks up nicely as you go through the episode. But then it doesn't really deliver. I guess what I'm trying to say is the ending doesn't really do justice to the bulk of the story.
Yeah.
And, because it's slightly longer than your average runtime, it's up to an hour. You kind of get to that point where you're like, okay, I can feel like something's building up, something's happening. The Great Intelligence is going to be spectacularly defeated. This is a special after all for Doctor Who, and it's going to be a big epic sort of ending. But it kind of just felt like it was just an average mid-series kind of episode. This could have quite nicely fit into the 45 minutes mid-series kind of thing. So yeah. I think it's got some great moments. So some really good moments in it. And like I said, I love Matt Smith's Doctor as usual. And Jenna Coleman, she's okay. She's okay in it. She's not too bad. Yeah, it's kind of flat for me, but with some good moments. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I just sort of balance that up a bit. Yeah, because I do enjoy it. I don't want this to come across that because I obviously enjoyed it more than you, if you found it a bit flat. And as I said, I would quite happily sit and watch this one anytime. I think it's one of those stories where there's so many good moments or nice moments in it. For me, that sort of outweighs I agree with you about the ending. I find the ending a bit messy, and the whole wrap up feels a bit underwhelming. There are definitely things where I think it could have been improved on. Like, for example, Richard E. Grant. he's a great actor. I really like Richard E. Grant, but he's very flat in this, and I'm not sure if that's down to the director, because I would say for the most part it's beautifully directed. The episode itself looks fantastic. You know, the production values are brilliant. But yeah, something about Richard's performance, it just, I don't know, you're sort of waiting for him to give a little bit more. And I think he's trying to underplay it. He's trying not to be like the pantomime villain, but I think he's perhaps slightly underplaying it. So when you get an actor like Richard E. Grant in it, I just expected slightly more from him or from the character maybe. You know, he's not particularly in it that much. You've got Ian McKellen doing the voice of the Great Intelligence, which is great, but you kind of want to see him. It's really weird because his voice is so distinctive. You're aware that it's Richard, you know, that it's Ian McKellen, and so it's weird not to see him. But I think that's the thing. There's a lot of good build up to this, and there's a lot of nice scenes that build up to the ending. And I think maybe it is just that fact that it kind of, to be honest, by the time we get to the end, I feel like Moffat's lost, you know, interest in sort of like the main plot thread. All he really wants to do is get back to Clara, and it becomes very much about Clara and the mysterious girl, and I do like those threads. You know, I love, at the time when this went out, I love the fact we were seeing a different version of, you know, that he threw the Oswin in, didn't he, in Asylum of the Daleks, and that was a surprise. Back when the mothball could keep secrets, he threw her in, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, it's the new companion! She's in. What's she doing in this episode?" And then we got this Victorian version of her, and we're all wondering what's going on in the mothball's mind. Like, hang on, another Clara, and then Doctor realizes that there's another Clara out there that he's got to find. So there's a really cool little mystery there, which I like. I don't know if I like how it turned out, but it, you know what I mean? It was there at the time, and it was a cool thing to have. So I like all that stuff, and I kind of get why it goes back to that at the end, but it does slightly take away from, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, you know, the intelligence are defeated, that's the end of that. Let's get back to Clara. And it sort of, yeah, it does feel like a quick wrap up. So I think that leaves the episode feeling a bit flat in many ways.
Yes. Yeah. That's my thought, basically. In a nutshell, it's some lovely scenes, and there was some really cool stuff around Vastra and Strax and Jenny. Those guys are...
Yes, they're fun. I like the Paternoster gang. How do you say it?
Paternoster gang, yeah.
Yeah, those guys are cool characters. I like them.
And I think Dan Starkey as Strax, I think he comes under some scrutiny sometimes with Who fans. A lot of people say that he's too... he's kind of too on the nose, I suppose, too slapsticky and silly humour for that kind of thing. But I disagree. I think he's such a really, just whenever the story needs a little bit of comic relief, you know, a little bit of humour, he's just there, and he's so funny. I love Dan Starkey. I think it's because, and maybe this is a contradiction of what we've said previously about the Sontarans, I'm not sure, but we've often said with a lot of the modern stories that they've diluted them a little bit, and they're not these feared sort of war hungry species that they were in the classic years, and they're a bit more comedic now, and they just, you know, the mix taken out of them a little bit, rather than, I don't know, but I don't know. I just really love which is why I was so gutted when they just canned off the whole spin-off idea of those three doing their own thing, because
I can totally see that as a spin-off, actually.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah,
that's a good spin-off that never happened. Yeah.
Because I don't want to do that. Actually, yeah. So on one hand, you've got the idea of something like Class, and on the other hand, you've got the Paternosters. I know which one I would have gone with, but
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like the story sort of goes up and down as you go through it. You have these flat moments, but then there's a really funny bit with Strax, and then there's a bit of action, and there's a flat moment, and then there'll be a cool thing with Vastra and Jenny and whatnot. So yeah, I love those guys. What did you think to the story as a whole? Because I think for casual fans, there would have been a bit of head scratching with this. I don't know about you, but the whole thing around the human DNA thing with the ice crystals and the Great Intelligence itself, that's not really easily explained, is it? Even if you're a Doctor Who fan, if somebody said, so where does this come from? What's the whole concept with this snow globe talking thing, the great intelligence, you know. So I think for
Yeah.
fans of Who, the story was fairly decent, but I think for casual fans, I would have been a bit lost.
Possibly, mate. I mean, I think going back to when this aired and I first watched it, I remember I was like, when they named the Great Intelligence, that was a bit of a, yeah, oh, cool, that's a nice, you know, that Moffat's got that in there. I like that. I don't think I really got what they were trying to do when I first watched this, and watching it again last night, it is there on the screen if you really pay attention, but it's not, you know, it's a little unclear, I think, at times what's actually happening with the Great Intelligence, because I kept thinking, so what, you know, they're sort of waiting for this body under the ice, and it's not 100% clear, I don't think. So that's what I mean. I think the storyline itself is a little weak in that sense. But for me, it still holds together quite well in that it's got some... It's fun to watch for the most part. I think that's the thing. The storyline maybe not so strong, but I think for the majority of the episode, it's fun. It's a fun episode. I mean, you talking about Strax, I think he brings a lot of good humour to it. I do get the whole thing with the Sontarans and why people would think he's too comedic and that it makes the Sontarans look stupid. I get that, but I don't know. For me, as a one-off character, I think he works. I think, you know, he's the Sontarans, you know, are this race that, you know, there's so many of them. I think you can allow one of them to be a little bit stupid like Strax, you know. It's just, I think you can allow it as a one-off character. So I don't mind that so much. And I think the stuff with him and the Doctor is really funny. I mean, those scenes at the start, I still think they're really enjoyable. You know, when he tells him to get the memory worm and he doesn't wear the gloves and all that, and he's calling Clara boy. And, you know, I think that, you know, I think those two, well, I think all of those guys just bounce off each other really well in those scenes. So, yeah, storyline, I think, could have been stronger. But for me, it doesn't really detract from the fact that I still find it, for the most part, you know, a fun watch.
Indeedy, yes. And the humour with that scene is so funny.
Well, the memory worm.
The memory worm thing, yeah.
I would love to see some outtakes of that, especially when Richard E. Grant's grappling with it in the end. He must have been killing himself. I mean...
That was a bit banter at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very... But just holding that blimmin' horrible thing must have been... I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face if I was filming with that. But anyway, yeah.
There's a really good Big Finish story with Strax and somebody. I can't remember what it was. It's like a haunted house kind of story that Strax stars in. I think it might have been a Jaeger and Lightfoot. It was, yeah. It was those two and Strax together.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah,
and that weirdly works very well. That because it had the same kind of thing where you've got, particularly in this story, where the Doctor's feeling very down and because of the loss of Amy and Rory and so on, he's feeling very insular and very doesn't want to get involved in anything. So, which is that scene was actually very cool when Vastra was like, so you're getting back into the swing of this saving the world kind of thing, and there's like a cheeky little smile on his face, and you know he wants to get back into it. But so up to that point, the Doctor was very sort of disengaged and quite flat, and that's kind of how Jago and Lightfoot are in that story, where they're, you know, they're the polar opposite to Strax's character. So that dynamic works very well. And I just love his voice, Dan Starkey's voice as Strax. Every now and then he just pops up, and you know, I think someone says, "I know what would work well," you know, in this situation. He's like, "A grenade."
Grenade.
And, and you think, "Oh God, here we go." So yeah, I really liked the dynamic between Strax and the Doctor, and also Strax and Vastra and Jenny, which is why I think that spin-off would have worked so well. Because you've got a Vastra who's very serious a lot of the time. She's obviously the leader of that little gang, so she's very much in charge. And Jenny is outside of their wife and wife dynamic. She's kind of second in command, I would say. Mm-hmm. So she's doing her thing as well. And then you've just got this bumbling idiot who just wants to blow everything up. And yeah, so I love it, dude. That part of it made me smile, and I really enjoyed watching that part of it. So
they're three good characters, aren't they? That's the thing when you watch them. Because is this only... I always forget when they got introduced, but they're still fairly new characters at this point, aren't they? Is this only the second episode they're in, or maybe, I don't know, I lose track, but they are quite defined as characters. I think they're strong enough that the three of them, if they had a spin-off, would have worked quite well, I think.
Yes, yeah, and we did have some. We did have a couple of little prequel stories that went out prior to this, didn't we? So that also set up the characters with those guys. So that was very much the Paternoster and the Doctor and so on. So they helped. That helped as well build and establish them as characters and whatnot. And I think they were quite cool. Those little prequels. They were only.
I'd forgotten about those. Yeah.
Yeah, they're only like very short 5-minute little things, but they were very cool. And you had Mark Gatiss narrating those and stuff. Yeah, they were fun. They were cool. So
they work well with Matt's Doctor as well, don't they? They're the kind of friends that you can imagine his Doctor having. Do you know what I mean? They kind of work as a unit, and I like the fact that they're looking out for the Doctor and kind of they've got his back, haven't they? Mm-hmm. You know, that's the bit of the, you know, that's another bit of the story that I really like, is that, you know, that I like this idea that the Doctor's gone into retreat after what happened to Amy and Rory, which I think he would. You know, those three were a great dynamic, so on and off screen. So I think it's right that the Doctor would retreat and just, I'm not doing this anymore, I've had enough. And Matt plays that brilliantly once again. It just you know, really brings home that sort of sadness inside the Doctor and everything. And I love the fact he's gone and parked the TARDIS up on a cloud and he's got this invisible ladder and stuff. It's a really simple but beautiful idea. But the other side of it that I love is that we know, and this is the other thing that Matt does brilliantly, this sort of almost childlike, we know that he cannot resist getting involved. And this is the other wonderful side of Matt's Doctor and how he plays it, is this sort of glint that he has in his eye that he's trying so hard not to get embroidered back into adventures and stuff. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. But you can see from his face that he just can't resist it. And Matt plays those two sides of the Doctor just brilliantly. And again, I think that's what brings the episode up for me, to, you know, despite the storyline perhaps being a bit weak in places. I think once again Matt Smith just delivers just such a rounded performance, and he's such an engaging performance that for me it carries the story along brilliantly.
He does, actually, yeah. And we've seen that many times with Matt Smith's era, you know, where the story may not have been the strongest, and you can't really expect every single story to be 10 out of 10 amazing all the time, of course. But some of those other stories where, you know, the script is a little bit not quite as sharp as some of the others, and it feels a little bit paddy and so on. However, Matt Smith's performance is just so enthralling. You're just glued to him the whole time. He carries it. There's no better way to say it. Sometimes he just carries a whole story just on his own shoulders, which is amazing, really, because you would think that some of the other Doctors would be more suited to that because of their experience being older and etc. But he's just, as a young, especially at this point in his career, he's still pretty young, wasn't he? He was can't remember exactly, but you know, fairly young. So it's amazing when you think about that. And I'm not saying that this story was particularly weak. It was just a bit flat for me. But in terms of Matt Smith's performance, and that little glint in his eye is what really makes it. You know, that little smile is just everything. You know, because it was a decent enough transition, I think, where we came out of the Pons era, I think is the best way to put it. And I think this is the first story within Matt Smith's era where Amy doesn't appear at all in the entire episode. This is the first time, that she's never appeared. So you kind of get the transition, which is okay. He's still, like we said, down in the dumps, not really feeling it. But then as the story goes on and more things happen, and his fascination with Clara's character, with Jenna Coleman's character, as that progresses and heats up as well, he just, you because of his performance, you also get swept along with it as well. And then you want him to get back in the saddle and start doing stuff. So,
and when he does, it's such a great moment. It's
so
like,
good.
I knew you would give in, dude. There's no way you could resist.
Yeah, it's cool. What did you think so we've spoken about Matt Smith, and so Jenna Coleman, she was okay in this. She wasn't too bad, but we we do kickstart this kind of flirty thing going on, don't we? That we have on and off throughout Who, that we've seen with River Song and, you know, some. So what do you think to that then? Because I think her performance was okay, but one scene that wasn't too bad, it was kind of funny, I guess, is when she tells him to climb up the ladder, because essentially she doesn't want him looking up her skirt. The Doctor had no intention of doing that, I think, anyway. But then when he starts climbing up the ladder, she has a good old look. And, you know, it's a little bit... Maybe that was one for the mums and dads watching. I don't know. But it was, I've seen worse.
I do, but I do think that's where Moffat lets himself down. Because as I said earlier, for the most part, Moffat's humour lands for me. And I find his dialogue to be, for the most part, pretty sharp, pretty good. But then there are moments like that and the kiss, and there's another line where I just feel like Moffat just can't help himself. You know, he's a bit, so there is worse. I mean, I think the Amy kissing the Doctor in series 5, you know, when all that, I think that was worse. But yeah, I could have done without that. It definitely brought the story down a point in my rating, because I was like, oh, Moffat, because I think up to this point, I like this dynamic between the Doctor and Clara. I like the fact he's giving her these little tests to see if she's like could possibly be the new companion, because he really, although he doesn't want to admit it, desperately wants to find someone to travel with him. So I love all the stuff like the umbrella, you know, when he gives her the umbrella and she says, "You're tall enough to have reached that. You only gave me the umbrella to see if I knew what it was for." And I thought, that's again when Moffat's at his best, thinking of little ideas like that. So
we had a kiss.
The dynamic between
we had a kiss in this, didn't we? We did have a kiss in this.
Yeah, and again, I didn't think that was necessary, because I'm liking their dynamic, and for me, I'm not Jenna's biggest fan. I'm not Clara's biggest fan at all. I just find her very unevenly written and stuff, but. For me, I actually I liked her performance in this. You were saying she was okay. I get the feeling that I thought she was better than you did, but I thought she worked quite well as this Victorian character, and I loved all the stuff like, you know, the Doctor trying to test her, and also when she discovers the TARDIS, and you think she's going to run into it, but she doesn't. She runs down the stairs. You think, oh my God, you just assume she's going to go inside, but she doesn't. They hold that off so they can do the TARDIS console reveal, which I'd forgotten about, because at the time that was a new console. So I think that probably would have been as like an OMG moment. I can't remember now, but at the time that would have been a big reveal, that new console, because before that it was that sort of orangey colour one, wasn't it? So there's I think the relationship was going well. I think they work well together. It does, once we get into the flirty and, you know, a little bit, it gets a little bit sexualized, the jokes. For me, I think that's where Moffat lets himself down, and I definitely could have done without that. Yeah. But up until that point, I thought it was quite fun. And I think it's quite nice, the ending when she's like, "Run, you clever boy," and it all links up to the souffle girl. And there's a really lovely moment when she walks into the TARDIS for the first time and she says, "Where's the kitchen?" And Matt's like, "Well, that's a first." And she also says that the Doctor's smaller on the outside. Again, that's a great example of Moffat, like, turning something round to make it funny. So, you know, smaller on the outside rather than bigger on the inside. Again, such a simple idea, but funny, and Matt's reaction to it. So there's a lot of nice, good moments like that between the two of them. Yes. But if you take away the odd one or two little bits towards the end, I think would have been a lot better. Yes, no, I completely agree with that, dude. Yeah, and what did you think to Jenna Coleman's performance then? Because this is early days for Clara, obviously. Did you... you mentioned that she's been unevenly written, which is completely accurate, but did you think she was good in this? I think she's more rounded, don't you? Because she's sort of got a role. She's got, she's this nanny to the kids, which is she's great in those scenes where she's sort of like, they're like, do the voice, and she's like, what, this one, Governor? You know what I mean? I thought those scenes were lovely, and her character just feels very rounded. She's a Victorian woman. She's obviously quite intelligent. She's obviously up for adventure, and she's, it's a strong character, I feel like. Whereas as we go on and meet the other versions of Clara, she's all over the place. She's a teacher one week, a nanny the next. It's just whatever the story needed, she's it. Whereas this one, I just feel like the character's quite defined, and I think she plays it quite well.
Yeah.
Although it pains me to say it because I do, not a biggest fan, but yeah, I think she does play it well.
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think there are certainly times where we thought, because of her character being because of her character being written unevenly, up and down, a bit like Capaldi. His character, his doctor was a bit up and down and stuff. It kind of. I guess if you were a new Doctor Who fan and you were watching all the stories, doing a modern marathon sort of thing, and you got to this point, you would probably think, okay, Clara seems cool, like Jenna Coleman and so on. So I think at this point in modern Who's run, especially Matt Smith's run, I did quite like her in this. I think she had a really good relationship with the kids that she was looking out for when she was the Baroness character. And when she was the barmaid, she was sort of sassy enough, and a little bit sassy in that respect. It was only those little bits, and you mentioned it as well, those little flirty bits with the kissing and all that sort of thing. It kind of sets you off on the wrong foot, I guess, because you think, are we going to go down the Doctor and Rose road again with these two? Is it going to be all pouty and all that stuff that we had with Rose and Tennant's Doctor? So. But fortunately, it didn't go that far. It was just a little bit of, okay. And then I think the Moff Bag reserves all that stuff for the River Song storyline and all that stuff,
yeah.
So,
I was going to say, I think that's what's slightly frustrating about it as well, because you feel like at this point, the Moffat should have known better, because you've got the whole Rose and Doctor thing. And then RTD, I think, kind of realised after Martha that once he brought Donna in, he'd got to change the dynamic up, and then she was like absolutely having none of it. You're not mating with me, spaceman. It's like the relationship was just total friendship and platonic, and that worked so much better for me. And also, that was what was needed after all the sort of love interests that had come before, which, to be honest, I've never really been particularly comfortable with any of it, really. I just don't like this idea. I don't think we need a love interest between the Doctor companion. It just, for me, the Doctor Donna relationship is perfect in how it should be. So I think the mothball with Amy, again, I don't think it really, for me, I didn't really like the scenes where she was falling over the Doctor. In certain ways it works, like, the whole wedding day thing, but they should have nipped it in the bud a lot quicker than they did, and the mothball didn't do that. He kind of carried it all the way through, but he did get it right in the end. We got to see that Amy and Rory really were in love, and he kind of redeemed himself a bit.
Yes.
So then when we get to Clara, I feel like he should have thought, right, we've done the whole in love with the Doctor thing. It's been done quite a lot since the show returned. We need to get back to basics a bit. And for him to sort of still be writing this slightly flirty stuff with the kiss as well. And when I say the Moffat can't help himself, I mean, he does it a few times, You think about Capaldi when he first meets Missy and she goes up and plants a big old smacker on him. And I remember groaning at that, thinking, they don't always have to kiss, Moffat, It's not like part of the thing. So, yeah, there are times when I find it frustrating that he has to put in stuff like that, or felt the need to do it. I think he is a good writer. I really do champion Moffat. I think he comes in for a lot of stick, but personally, for the most part, I really like Moffat's writing. I don't think he always got it right, but it does frustrate me when he does stuff like that, because I just feel like he needs to rein it in a little bit sometimes.
No, agreed. Yeah. Before we finish off just talking about a few of the other characters, what did you think to the Great Intelligence in this then? Because a classic alien monster villain, insert correct name here, that we've seen a few times now throughout, lots of over many years. And like I said at the beginning, I was okay with this. It wasn't too bad. The whole concept of what was the character name? Richard E. Grant's character, Simeon, Dr. Simeon. The concept of his kind of thoughts and stuff powering the Great Intelligence, and all the while him thinking that it was some independent being that he was communicating with, but in reality it was just his own thoughts that were sort of powering that and so on. And like I said, I think there would have been a little bit of head scratching from new Doctor Who fans or casual fans. So, but what did you think to the Great Intelligence being back in this story then? Did you think they made the most of that as a monster, as a villain in Doctor Who? Because that was the thing that added to my sort of flatness, really. My flat feeling on it was just a little bit, no big epic showdown with this thing. It was just there's a couple of cool scenes, like when the Doctor's whacking it with his walking stick and he's figuring it all out. He's doing his Sherlock Holmes moment, which is very, very cool. And, he's deciphering what's going on, and that's all cool. But towards the end, it was just a bit of not much really. What did you think to the GI, as it says on the business card?
Yeah, I think I love the fact they got name checked, and I do think it's a great thing for the Moffat to bring back. But a bit like Richard E. Grant, a bit like Sir Ian McKellen, the Great Intelligence fit into the same thing of being a bit underused, I think. And the Snowmen as well. I think that's such a great concept. This is one of the things I do love about Moffat. He will take a simple, everyday thing. Well, not that we get snow every day, but something that we can encounter in real life, and he will make it scary. And I think the Snowmen, if I was a kid, I'd be loving that you've got these snowmen and they open their mouth and they've got these fangs and they look really scary, but they're not utilised very well. You could have really ramped that up and made them, like, you could have had them on an army of them sort of coming at you, which we sort of get, but it feels just a little bit, it's so fleeting that you'd sort of blink and miss it. But you could have really utilised them and the Great Intelligence, and particularly Richard E. Grant as well. I feel that's the biggest letdown, actually. I'm kind of okay with the Great Intelligence, to be honest with you, because they are just that sort of entity, and it's fine that they're name checked and that's what they are. Okay, that's kind of works for me. But I think when you've got such a good actor as Richard E. Grant, you got to give him a bit more meat on the bones. And I said his performance earlier was flat, and I think it is, but I also feel like he wasn't given enough stuff to do. So so for me, the sort of Great Intelligence I can kind of live with. I think it's cool that they're name checked, and I don't really have a problem with how they were used. But I think the Snowmen themselves could have been used better, the scary Snowmen, and also Richard E. Grant as a character, Dr. Simeon, could have really been built up as a big villain that needed defeated, whereas he is just taken out way too easily. And he does come back, doesn't he? He's in the name of the Doctor, isn't he?
Yes.
And I'm trying to work. Yeah, but how does that? Because we reviewed that not that long ago, and I can't remember why he turns up or how he's there or what that's all about. I'll have to go back and rewatch that, because I really can't work out how that fits into how this ended and how he suddenly turns back up. I don't know. Is the Great Intelligence taken over him or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, let's go back and watch that one, dude.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that long ago we watched it, but I just can't remember.
Well, that's,
I think. Do you feel like they were a wasted opportunity then? The Great Intelligence.
A little bit, yeah. I felt like, but I think that's a choice that needed to be made though in the writing and whatnot, because you either concentrate and focus on the Doctor side of things and his reluctance to get back into help saving the world and losing Amy and Rory and all that stuff. You either focus on that, and then Clara coming back into it and forming that relationship, or you focus on the bad guys and the villains and you make them the focus, and then you don't focus too much on the other stuff. So it was clear that that the Moff Bag focused on the Doctor side of things. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Just because of that very reason, the Dr. Simeon and the Great Intelligence side of things were just then, I wouldn't say sidelined, but just, underused a tad because of that.
That's the thing with Moffat, mate, and I do stick up for his writing a lot, but one thing that does frustrate me about him is I often feel like he comes up with great ideas on villains, but doesn't quite know what to do with them. And a prime example of that is the Smilers in The Beast Below. Remember how cool and scary they looked? And I'll never forget that moment in the episode where they come out of their booths and you thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then they just drop to the floor. And that's like a prime example of what Moffat does. He comes up with these great things, but they don't seem to do anything. And it's kind of the same with the snowmen in this.
Yep.
You got the snowflakes with the scary mouth in flying around. You know, you've got all this stuff that's really cool, but nothing happens. Like the snowmen don't really do anything other than go rah, you know, roar at people. They don't actually do anything. And you know, what's the other thing? The silents are a bit like that, weren't they? They kept popping up and they were really cool looking, really scary, but they didn't really do anything. So it's one of my frustrations with Moffat's writing, that he comes up with great concepts of villains, but often they don't get utilised as well as they could.
Indeed, yeah. And so when the Great Intelligence appeared on Trenzalore with the Whisper Men, do you remember those?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the Great Intelligence, he took the form of Dr. Simeon, I think.
Okay.
So Dr. Simeon had died in this episode at the end. So when he turns up at Trenzalore for that storyline, he just takes on his form. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I thought it was something like that.
Yeah, just so he can communicate with the Doctor and so on. He needs a form, you know, to take on. So, but that's just... I wouldn't say it's a downside, but that's one of the things that it comes as part and parcel of Moffat's writing, is that you do have to go and re-educate yourself a little bit on some of those storylines, because it's all very thready and characters popping back up. And we've spoken about that loads of times. You know, listening, you'll know what we mean by that. Sometimes the Moffat storylines and those arcs that spread over a series or a couple of series, you do have to you do have to go and sort of reread stuff and rewatch stuff to get yourself clued up on it. It's not like the more simplistic, Russell T Davies era that we had. The Moff Bag certainly liked his multiple threads and carryovers and everything. So
it's a double-edged sword, that, isn't it? Because it is, at the time when you're watching this air, like you said, for a sort of any casual viewer or even just somebody who's, you know, not really sort of following every episode. It's not a kind of they are standalone stories, but yeah, you do have to kind of follow threads during the Moffat era, and it's a double-edged sword, because that's very rewarding on a rewatch. Like now that we're all these years later, we can go back and watch it from the start right to the end. That works great. It's like, oh my god, he's popping up again, and that from that story back in series 5 is now being concluded in the special, you know, in series 7. It's really rewarding in a rewatch sense, but quite frustrating at the time, and especially and quite alienating for a casual viewer or anyone that's sort of dipping into who, you know. It's a real double-edged sword that I don't know how I feel about it, because I kind of love it going back and watching it now, and there's so much to take from the Moffat era that does work over a long period of time. But yeah, when you're watching this back in the day, it's quite hard to keep track. So
indeed,
I don't know. Yeah. Don't know how I feel about that.
No, you're absolutely right. Though it's rewarding from that sense. Like if you're doing a like a Matt Smith marathon, and you get to the end and you're like, wow, that was very cool. Or like you said, if you rewatch, you know, it's all good. But there were some really cool things that I liked in this, in terms of production and that kind of thing. But before I do, I agree with you on one more thing as well, and that is the imagery that those snowmen, that sort of horror-esque, horror film kind of grinning snowmen with the evil faces. Yeah, because they used them quite a lot with the promos and stuff leading up to it, and you thought they were going to be in it a lot more. So they were underused as well. I think they could have done with a bit more menace. They just ended up being, I don't know, just ornaments, throughout some of the set pieces and whatnot. So, but I get it from a production point of view, very difficult to make them, anything where you've got to make something animate, like water or snow or anything like that. It's very, very tricky and expensive to do. So, yeah, I can see why they're a bit static and are just a little bit, a little bit underused. But I like the face, like the horror style face. They were cool.
I thought they were in it a lot more. It's weird watching this yesterday. They're not in it much at all, are they? There's the intro and that. But yeah, I really thought the snowmen were in it more than they actually are. Mm-hmm. But you're probably right, from a production point of view, it's probably expensive. But the episode itself looks great, though, for the most part. I don't think, if I was being really picky, I would say there's one effect which looked a bit dated, which was when Simeon gets that snow thing out and he points it towards the house. Bit dodgy. But for the most part, I thought the episode actually stood up really well in terms of production, like the snow and the house, the locations. Maybe the creature on the stairs is dated a little bit, the one that's going, what's it saying? Not Pieces of 8. It's a Mr. Punch or whatever. That glass creature probably maybe looks a bit dated, but not too bad.
Oh, yeah, It was a pretty
boy. I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that for the most part, the episode still looks gorgeous. I thought all the stuff on the TARDIS and the cloud and the sets and the costumes as well, like, they look great. I mean, I love Matt's outfit in this. He really suits that, especially early on in the episode. He's got like this, almost like that crinkly hat, which reminds me of the second Doctor hat, which I think he only wears like in Power of the Daleks or something. But that crinkly hat that he's got on, and the glasses, the little funny little round. Matt really sells that look. I mean, it really suits him, and it suits this sort of period that his Doctor's going through in terms of this reclusive, almost hobo. Victor, it's a great change up a costume for him. If you think how different that is to the tweed jacket and bow tie that we got, a few series before. Yes. This is so different, but it really suits Matt. He really suits it. And mate, how good is that scene? And I'd forgotten this till I rewatched it yesterday, when he realizes he's put the tie on without thinking about it, and he sees himself in the mirror. Because at first I'm like, what's he looking at? He's like, I've put it on. And I just, again, this is Matt just being brilliant. It's almost emotional, and it's silly. It's just a bow tie, but it's just his reaction to it that he's put it on without realizing, because he's back in the swing of things. So it's a lovely moment, that. And Matt really sells it. Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody else says that, don't they? Somebody says it's cool, unrelated to what he's observing in the mirror, but he thinks they're talking to him, and he's like, yes, bow ties are cool. It's a lovely scene, that. Yeah, you're
right. And again, that's a good example of Moffat's dialogue. She's like, no, I'm talking about the room. It's getting cooler or something. He's like, oh yeah. But again, it's just clever writing, and I love it. It's a great scene.
It's very cool. Yeah,
bow ties are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's not really many other characters, are there? We've got the guy who's he's like I think his name's Captain Latimer. He's the guy that's hired Clara, or Clara's, her alternate life is there looking after. I think that's him. He was okay. He sort of looks bemused a lot of the time, and
it's really funny actually, because so Tom Ward, he was in Silent Witness for years as a major character. Right now, I'm a bit late to the party, but me and my other half have really got into Silent Witness the last few years, so we've been going back and watching all the older ones, and he's in it for like years. He's in quite a lot of series, this guy Tom Ward. So I don't know, randomly, because he leaves the series, I thought, I've never seen him after that, and he's quite good in Silent Witness. He's a good character, good performance. I thought, whatever happened to him? Because he's one of those actors you assume would go on to do good things, and I don't think I've seen him in anything since. And so I was surprised to see his name come up on Wiki under Doctor Who, and I'm like, Tom Ward's in Doctor Who? Oh, I see. So he left Silent Witness and he was in Doctor Who. I don't remember that. So it's really weird. So I watch him in this, and he's so forgettable. It's just like, I can't believe it's the same actor. He's quite a good actor, or at least he was quite good in Silent Witness. And he's just so bland in it, and he may as well not be in it. It's really shocking. Like, I always forget he's even in it. But yeah, so Tom Ward, he should go back to Silent Witness. I mean, come on. They're bringing back old characters now. It's got to that stage in the series. They've been going so long, they're bringing back all the old characters. So maybe he's waiting in the wings for the phone call.
Maybe.
But it's a rubbish character, mate. Totally forgettable.
He is forgettable, yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Tom. Yeah. I like you in Silent Witness, but didn't get much from you in this.
What about, so we've spoken about the principal cast fairly deep, but what about Jenny and Vastra then? Because those two, really good team together. So we've spoken about Strax, obviously, but Jenny and Vastra are very good, and they're just a real likeable team. They're just two very likeable characters, which makes that little trio work very well. Like one of the reasons why it works very well. But I think Neve McIntosh and Catherine Stewart. Very, very cool together. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like them a lot, and I do like the scene when they've got Clara and they're sort of just having a chat with her, and she phones the doctor and says she said the word pond. And but of course, again, this is a great bit. I'm going to praise Moffat again, because when he gets it right, he gets it right. So she's talking about the pond obviously being frozen over, but he throws that as being the password of Amy Pond. You know, just lovely little bit of writing there from Moffat. So, but that's a cool scene, and I think, yeah, Jenny and Vastra just. I just love the fact they're in the background doing all this stuff, helping the Doctor, and they feel like a proper team. And, you know, I think they're good characters and good performances from both. Very, very strong. Yes,
very strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on your notes, buddy? Oh, one thing I did like, I think you mentioned it already. I really like the TARDIS up in the clouds, you know, in the circular staircase. Really, really, very visually. It looked awesome, that. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember being shocked the first time I watched this when Clara does get taken out of the TARDIS and dies. I remember, because you're not expecting it, because he's lost Amy and Rory, and he's only I mean, that's a good scene, actually. He's like just getting back in the swing, isn't it? He's like, this is the first day of whatever, and he's really like hyped up and I'm back, and then Clara gets snatched and dies. Like, it's I wasn't expecting it at the time, or I thought, oh, she's going to live because they're not going to kill her off, are they? Because, you know, but they do, and it sets off a whole new mystery and storyline. But yeah, love the visuals on that. I thought it was very, very cool. Other things on my notes, mate. Just that I love the battered TARDIS. I like the look of it. You know, when it lands in Dr. Sirian's laboratory, it's all battered and it just looks a bit weathered. I think it really suits it, and they should have kept it looking a bit more like that, because it goes back to being spotless and clean pretty soon after this. And I just like the TARDIS looking a bit more weathered. I mean, it does go through quite a bit. You'd expect it to have a few marks on it, I think. Yeah. And the music I thought was gorgeous in this. Murray Gold, for me, getting it just right. He's taken it down a notch, you know. Sometimes Murray's music can be bombastic and overbearing, and I felt in this it was just beautiful music from Murray in this one. He holds off on the Doctor's theme. We do get it, but it's only in it once, as far as I'm aware, which is kind of near the end. We get the dun dun dun, you know, you kind of waiting for it. But, you know, Amy's theme is gorgeous, isn't it? It's beautiful. So Murray's music, great. And the bass theme, I believe this was the first time we got the new theme tune, which has never been released, by the way. Murray, come on, what are you doing? You know, this bassy version of the theme tune.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like it, you know. It's a million times better than the Screechy Cat version that you did for Capaldi. This is a much better version of the theme. And I quite like the intro with Matt's face just slightly appearing, which is a nice callback to the classic series. So, yeah, it's interesting to hear that theme again. I'm sure I had one more thing on my notes. Let me just quickly look. Killer Snowflakes. Oh, Dr. Sherlock. Yeah, the Sherlock Holmes scene. I just thought that was quite funny. It's just lovely to see Matt playing Sherlock Holmes. I just thought it was a nice idea. Clearly a little in-joke from Moffat. 'Cause was he writing Sherlock at this point? I don't know. But that was funny. And I just love the way he keeps whacking the great intelligence, the big bowl. Just something about the way Matt played that scene, I thought was great.
He's
Dr.
amazing,
Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. Oh, he is. He's just so good with the humour, but he's great with the humour, but even better with the emotion. I think Matt he's such an all-rounder. Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't think I've got anything else, really.
Okay. Yeah, I've got nothing else, dude. I did put Murray's music equals good. Thumbs up. So, yeah. No complaints there.
Yeah, Murray's music is lovely in this. Really, really nice. I think there was a soundtrack. I don't know. Why didn't he put the theme on it, though? Strange. Anyway.
Okay, dude. I think it's you to go first, mate, for scores.
Well, I'm going to be honest. Before I rewatched this yesterday, I was thinking this was an 8 out of 10. It's always a special that I'm happy to watch, and it's one that I enjoy. Watching it again yesterday, still have those feelings for it, but with a sort of critical eye and taking out a few things, I think I'm going to go down a notch. It's not quite an 8. I think it's a 7.5, and mainly because of the slightly underwhelming ending, but it's I don't know. It's what are you giving it? You're going to be lower, aren't you? I want to give it an 8 because I do like it. I am going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8.
You're going to go with an 8, right? Okay.
I am, because I do like this one.
Okay.
7.5 is too low, I think. Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Give it an 8.
Well, I'm going to give this a 7.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy with that. That's good.
You're right. You're right with that.
Well, I'm thinking, because if you were a 6 or 0.5 something, and then probably, I have to sort of try and gauge where your level is. Because for me, 7.5 is when something's good but not that great. Mm-hmm. Whereas an 8's normally pretty good. So I'm just trying to gauge where we are with our scores. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a 7 because I really wanted to give it a high. I was looking at 8.5 9s in terms of this should be up there because it's a special. It's got slightly more runtime. There's a good bunch of characters in it. Good classic monster back and all that stuff. But like I said at the beginning, it just feels like it's trying really hard to hit all the marks, but it's just I don't know what it is. It's just falling short a little bit. And to be honest with you, if this wasn't for Matt Smith and his performance, this probably would have been a 5.5 or a 6 for me. Yeah,
I will agree with that. Matt definitely brings this up, which is so often the case, isn't it? I think a lot of times when we've reviewed a Matt episode, we say this. If it wasn't for him, the score would be definitely lower. Yeah.
Indeedy. Yeah. Alrighty then. So a 7 from me and an 8 from him. What did our listeners think? We had quite a few over on the Twitter. So let's go down to Rick Moran from the Dwas. Short and sweet from Rick, says meh. 3 out of 10 purely for the excellent Jenna Coleman. Oh, Rick,
not a fan of this one.
Rick not feeling it. James K348 says, literally rewatched this for the first time in years a few weeks ago. It's decent, but it's just that. Nothing much to it. Jenna puts in a good performance, as does Richard E. Grant, but the great intelligence feels a bit of a lackluster villain. Clara's clearly the focus here. Matt and Strax are fun, and the TARDIS cloud is a lovely visual, but doesn't really make any sense. Smiling face, as said, it's just decent. Like most of the Christmas specials, a 6 out of 10.
Ooh, okay.
Thank you very much, James. Will Sanger says, it's a story that has unfortunately never grown on me. The flirting and sexual tension between the Doctor and Clara is awful, and Clara's connection with the Doctor is forced. Richard E. Grant is uncharacteristically wooden, playing a character with undeveloped motivations. A 3 out of 10.
Oh, gosh.
Will not liking this either. TBLW, Toko BL Hoovian, says, an underrated Christmas special. Everyone is great, but Moffat making Clara and the Doctor sexualise is where I take a point away. I do love the comedy, especially from Strax. Victoria and Clara should have been the companion for the rest of Smith's time. And Capaldi's, I give this a 9 out of 10, or a 9.
A 9.
Nice, thank you very much. Our writer Jordan Shortman says, this is my favourite of the Matt Smith Christmas episodes, but none of them are very good. Jenna is much more interesting version of Clara here than we ever got when she was a proper companion, and Matt Smith is good, but I'm still not a fan of the 11th Doctor. Good, but not great.
We've got to sort Jordan out, mate. Still not a fan of the 11th Doctor. He's the best Doctor. Gonna have to give him a good sort out when we see him at the BFI.
Yeah, we're going to have to beat you up a little bit, Jordan, I think, when we see it at the BFI. Yeah, a couple of slaps. Right, Chippy T says, really enjoyed this revisit. Lovely comic touches with Strax and the Doctor. Clara on cheeky/naughty duties. REG enjoying his role and nicely realised Snowmen. Good fun, but let down a little by the ending, being rain/tears/whatever. Matt Smith, what a great Doctor. A 7.5 from me. Cool. Sam Dooley says, I love the time period. Gold's music shines. That shot into the TARDIS interior is so gorgeous. The great intelligence is a solid villain. It is only let down by this version of Clara being much more fun than normal Clara, and it makes me want that version of her character more. An 8 out of 10.
An 8, yeah. Another 8.
Yes. I think I know what you mean. There was a shot, wasn't there? It was this special effect where it was like a single camera shot that followed... was it Clara? I think from the outside of the TARDIS, right the way through the doors and then into the console room. It was very cool.
That's right.
Yeah. It looked awesome, that. And then lastly on Twitter, Owen says, the whole aesthetic of this story is brilliant. 11 suits the Victorian setting and a more mopey Doctor is a goldmine. The story sets up Clara's return with ease and solidifies the Paternoster gang. I'm always amazed Ian McKellen is in this, though. Gives it a 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
And over on the Facebook, we had a few there. So Toby Coleman says, another story from the 11th Doctor's time that I enjoy. I think the Victorian Clara is entertaining and the Great Intelligence is creepy. Making Snow scary is such a Moffat thing to do.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 frostbitten fingers. Martin Arnold says, despite the post-pond moping and the egregious self-pity, I actually rather like this. It does the Christmas thing very well and is one of the better Moffat-era specials. The Great Intelligence was nicely menacing. I'd give it a solid 8. Nothing really more to say, just a nice episode.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Charlie Turner says, not too bad looking back on it, actually, as bland as big actor Richard E. Grant's tone of voice is at times, but also kind of creepy at the same time. Nice return for the Great Intelligence, though, and I hope to get the music for this story for my birthday this year, as hard as it is to find on CD, I believe. 8 out of 10. Pretty good looking. Back on it, not going to lie. Thank you very much, Charlie. Some decent scores there, mixed in with some really low ones. We had a 3, I think, and so on average then, let's even it out, it's probably a 6 if we average it out.
I would say. Yeah.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much, guys, for sending in your thoughts and your reviews. As always, we very, very much appreciate that, as we like to know what you guys are thinking. What we got next week, bud?
Next week, we'll be back to Miracle Day, Torchwood, and we're on episode 6 day, thinking back to Children of we're on episode 6, and this one's called The Middlemen.
The Middlemen.
The Middlemen. Who are the Middlemen then? So those guys in the masks finally coming back or not? Yeah. What's happened to those guys?
Oh, yeah. What's happened to them? So a bit of Torchwood.
I meant to say
again,
that to you on last week. It's like, what has happened to them?
Oh, the cult.
Yeah,
the dudes with the mask,
they intrigued me and they've not been in it since. Anyway, the Middlemen.
The Middlemen, indeed, yes. Alrighty. Well, I think that's a good place there to wrap it for episode 360, bud.
Alrighty.
Thank you for coming back to the Big Blue Box and listening to another episode. That was 360. As Adam said, next week we are back to Torchwood to get through our reviews of Miracle Day, and it's episode 6, this one called The Middlemen. So get your DVDs or Blu-rays fired up or get on the old iPlayer and get that watched, because we'll be asking for your thoughts and scores out of 10 as always. Until then, make sure you are following or subscribing to this podcast in your preferred app of choice. Just search for the Big Blue Box, you'll find us on there, or head over to bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk/listen. There'll be a bunch of links there. You can hop over to your preferred app or network and give us a listen, so you won't miss an episode when it lands every single Friday. You can also listen online in your browser. Just go to bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the apps are on there to listen to for free, plus all of the very cool articles and reviews and whatnot from our writing team. We had a couple of cool ones this week. Jordan's carrying on with his Great Adventure Virgin books, which are very cool, and Maria went back through the Big Finish catalogue and reviewed a really cool Martha Jones story. Also, check out our free Discord server. There's a link on the website. Hop in there with other Who fans and chat Who, plus we're on the socials. Links on the website. Go and do all the things. Also, don't forget to remember to check out Adam's channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
Yes, just released a new video last week. Go and check it out, along with all the others. Yeah. Hundreds of videos on there. And also on all the socials, of course. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All of them.
But not TikTok.
Go and do them. Until next week.
Get on that TikTok.
My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,